So welcome to Self-Publishing, aka dreaming of what I'll do with this awesome idea prototype before even knowing if people will want to pay for it. I'm just going to quickly introduce myself for the people who still don't know who I am. I'll quickly talk about what you have to do before you even start thinking about publishing or shipping a game. I'm going to talk a little bit about self-publishing, a little bit about finding and working with a publisher, summarize that, and give you lots of reading material. And then, of course, there might be time for questions. So who am I? Once again, my name is Vadim. I used to be a game journalist. I wrote for, I have my own company, vgvisionary.com. I do a lot of things with that. Not going to sum it up again because it takes too much time. I used to write for Game Sauce magazine, which was an international game industry, what's the word again? Trade magazine. And I used to write for a lot of, and I still do write for a lot of international media outlets, including outlets in Holland, the UK, the US, and Pakistan. I'm currently working with two of your fellow students on a game called Snobly Run, trying to get that to the market, and this slide is inspired by my hero and example, the IGF chairman, Brandon Boyer. So you're starting a business, are you? No, I'm just making this little game that I want to make money with. Well, you're actually starting a business. You're actually starting that process that you might end up finding investors and having to make contracts and getting to deal with taxes and all that kind of crazy stuff. Things change once you have a creative idea that you want to turn into a product, because not even money directly, but the notion of money gets involved. I think most of you know this. It's something that I believe encompasses a lot of people's thinking in this industry. They think they have a great idea, and then there's a big question mark, and then supposedly there should be profit. I've showed this to multiple people and they did not understand it. Do you? Please raise your hand. What's the problem with this? Who can tell me that?
Selling part.
Exactly, the selling part. We like to make stuff and do stuff. Then we think everything is going to happen magically and suddenly we're multi-millionaires. That is not the way it happens. So before you even start thinking about making money, you have, like Ilke said in his presentation, build your team. You got to know what you're up against. You got to know who you're working with. If they're dedicated and if they're at the same level as you, make sure, once again, like Ilke said, that you're not the exact same type of personalities. Because if you are, you will not see the opportunities around you, and you will all decide on the same decisions, you will all agree with everything, and that is not always the best thing to do. Decide on what kind of agreement you are going to take. Do this early. I've made the mistake of doing this too late several times, and it will screw you over, because the sooner the money train closes in on your project, the harder it is to look your friends into the eyes and your teammates and actually be able to set a reasonable agreement with them. Determine rights, determine IP ownership as soon as possible, and make it fair. It's business. It really is business. So set aside your friendship and look at it from a business perspective and act accordingly. Trust me, if you do this too late, you will regret it. You will have tensions. Track each other's contributions. Make sure that if you spend 3 months making a game, there's actually something that tells you how much you did contrary to your partners. Because if they suddenly decide to step up, then you at least know that they did their part and that they deserve credit for that part. And there's no confusion about it whatsoever. So cover your bases. Money plus friends is and will always be a problem, or cause problems. But guess what? There's good news. There's handy legal advice everywhere. I'm not talking about these TV shows. These are just filler for this presentation slide. But there are actually a lot of websites and a lot of entertainment lawyers who are blogging, like Mona Ibrahim, about this subject. They have tons and tons of blog posts that do not represent her legal authority, but can give you a hint on what you can expect. Like she says, online collaborations, if you work with foreign people, are frequent occurrences. However, the legality surrounding this kind of team building raises a variety of questions. Of course it does. privacy issues, jurisdictional issues, age. All those things make a relationship that is internationally in intellectual property very complicated and problematic. So you want to solve that stuff. And of course, you got to explore your options. You're making this awesome game for a specific platform. Why are you making it for a platform? The only reason you can possibly make it for a platform is if that platform is popular and you know that a certain percentage of that platform will eventually stumble upon your game. But you can also, if you want to earn some quick money, just make it in Flash and sell those games to, sell that license to certain game portals. And they will give you a couple of hundred for it, maybe a couple of thousand, depending on the quality and effort and span of it. But yeah, quick cash. You can sell your game directly to a portal, basically donate your baby. You can start up a portal. I've met quite a lot of people the past couple of years who decided there was still room in that saturated market to make your own portal. And they're doing it successfully, and after a year they were able to make a profit out of it with the least amount of effort. You can deal with publishers. You can dress up in a suit. You can go to conventions, conferences, which you should actually already be doing, and pitch it, pitch it, pitch it, pitch it. Pitch it 100 times, like asking out a girl or a guy. 100 times until finally one person says yes, and you can do business or love with them. Invent a new business model if you are ballsy. Some people did. But remember, what works for others does not automatically have to work for you. So don't think you're going to be the next Minecraft. Think of what they did in order to get there and what kind of decisions they had to make, and see if they are useful for you. Casual versus indie. Indie is hip. Casual is, well, it's casual. Like Nick Tipping's colleague says, he calls casual games polishing turds. The result of polishing turds all day is that you still smell a shit, and it's still a turd. Please, don't think about it like that. Just think about the certain demographic you're trying to appeal. Are you making a game for yourself? Okay, it's indie. Are you making a game that you want to reach millions of people with, or a specific group of millions of people? Don't stamp yourself as some kind of revolutionary. Casual isn't really evil. Most of the people who are in that business might be, but the developers themselves are quite honest and just people who want to make a buck and a living. But here's the most important thing. The least amount of leverage that you have towards any kind of portal, any kind of publisher, if you come up to them with a game that isn't finished yet. People have been telling me stories about this a lot recently. The most leverage you have, the most potential to not have a publisher get in there and mess up your game, give it another name or give it another shape, or turn the lead, character from a squirrel to a bunny or something like that, is when it's actually finished and you come up to a publisher and you say, this is ready, you just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And the same goes for selling it online, selling it in retail. Just make sure you finish it before you even start thinking about all the possibilities you have. Derek Yu from Mossmouth, he's also the founder of TickSource, which I hope by now everyone has visited or joined. If not, please do so, because that's where you should talk with fellow developers. Says the following. When he and his colleague Alec were working on a game called Aquaria, they basically forced themselves to join the Independent Games Festival and submit it. And that was for them the most kind of realistic deadline they had ever had. And they finished the game because they wanted to enter that competition. Now trying to find a deadline for you like this. Do you want to show your game off at GDC Europe? Well, then you got 3 months left. Go. But finish it if you want to have the best leverage. Like I said, if you're making a castle of Legos and it's already finished, chances are that when another person joins you, they won't have to do that much. But if it's halfway done, they will interrupt. They will mingle in and try to make it theirs as well. Remember this. All right, so you got your game. It's either in a prototype phase or it's finished. Here comes the big O. make the right choice. What do you want? Do you want money? Do you want respect? Or do you just want recognition? Do you just want something to be added to your soon-to-be Moby Games page, IMDb page, Wikipedia page, if you're so lucky? You got to make sure that you are motivated by the right choices, because your choices will be determined by this choice here. Everything you're going to do from now on is determined by this. And this can fluctuate. When you start smelling money, a lot of people give up their morals, their standards, and their beliefs because they think selling money is more important. Well, I can tell you one thing, it's not, and it never will be. But here's the basic formula if you are planning on publishing or selling your game yourself. The game quality times exposure is the amount of income. If you want to talk about exposure, look at my talk about marketing. Look at my talk about game journalism. Look at my talk about conferences. Basically, look at all my talks and you understand what exposure means. Step 7. It's actually a step that no one of us wants to think about, experience, or see anyone else suffer from. It's being cloned. It happens all the time. It happens daily. Every single minute, there's someone else on the other side of the world that picks up on your project because you're transparent, you're putting your source code or whatever online, trying to get other people to help you, and they take it and they put it on App Store for a price that does not cover your costs for making that. I had the pleasure of meeting the guys from QCF Design who are based in South Africa. Very small indie game community right there, and they were faced with a very unpleasant situation half a year ago. They were already popular. They're the creators of Desktop Dungeons, and they had it all going for them. They had an independent game festival nomination. They won later on, and this is what Danny Day, one of their members, said. Sometimes it seems like you're balancing your creative drive versus your business acumen, both of which my British wit compels me to admit are things I'm not really good at, and trying to make very important decisions with zero idea of where they'll lead. At what point does cloning impact your bottom line? And at what point does thinking like that start to undermine your humanity? Quite soon, I can say, from my experience. But it's nothing we want to experience, but be prepared that it might happen. Be prepared, not legally, but mentally and emotionally. So, self-publishing versus dealing with publishers. A lot of choices. And I'm not expecting you guys to be able to make these choices even faster after this talk. Not at all. Because it stays and it will always remain a difficult choice. Do I choose independence and ramen noodles for a couple of years? Or do I choose selling my soul to this huge, giant construction thing that can kill the White House in one blast? Nick Tipping, he formulated it quite well, even though it was about self-publishing, but you can imagine that you can change Portal with publisher in the first sentence and smaller Portal with self-publishing in the second. You'll make a number of zeros more money from a bad deal with published big ass, like incredibly big publishers that might screw you over, than actually having a very good deal for yourself but having no marketing budget or support or whatsoever to deal with. But self-publishing is a very interesting choice to make. It's a very motivated choice for most of these people. Nick Tipping himself, you know, he made this awesome game, Mr. Robot, and he's actually a two-man team together with his colleague Mark. Wrote a couple of nice posts about this. But basically what he says in a forum post in TickSource is, so my recommendations for indies is a three-pronged approach, and so is mine. He's basically reading my mind here. Portals, direct sales, and retail. The hardest of these and the most time-consuming is direct sales, but it's the only thing that grows your business, and he is so right. in the form of community and customers that will be interested in your future games. I think that's why many people neglect it, because do so at your own peril. I certainly wouldn't still be making indie games if it weren't for direct sales. But direct sales are what most indies fear the most, because what do they mean? They mean having to keep up with sales statistics, having to do advertising, measure metrics, support. Oh my God, customer support? Oh my God, there's this bug and thousands of people are flooding my email. What should I do? I don't know. Never done this before. But that's something that you have to want. You have to be motivated to self-publish. And you have to accept the price that you have to pay for it as well. You can find funding. You can find funding anywhere. Money, if you have a good project, often ends up not being such a problem. You can start with your family and friends. I mean, maybe your grandmother or grandpa still have like this big sock of gold coins behind their bed, and they can just give it to you like that. It's perfect. No revenue share, nothing. Just here's my money, Sonny. I'm gonna die in a couple of years anyway. You can find investors, and investors are everywhere. You can find them very easily. There's one right here in the front row right now. They actually come to you. They actually visit you. Isn't that awesome? You can sell small games. Just make mini games of the engines and the tech and the kind of mechanics you've already built for this awesome, huge MMO you want to make in Game Maker in a couple of years. Just use those and try to apply them to smaller scale games and sell those to portals. Or you can go to Kickstarter or whatever kind of crowdfunding website. Or you can set up your own crowdfunding website and hope people will come, even though you're not promoting it. The options are unlimited. The problem is, try to not be your worst enemy and limit yourself in thinking that these are impossible. They are. They are right in front of you, right now. Call now. Find angel investors. I mean, it's so easy. They actually live around universities. Have you ever like seen these little tents that, you know, kind of like are in the forest a little bit far away? That's where Ilka and his friends live. They actually they have these little like telescopes, and they actually watch what you guys are doing. And at the right time, at the right moment, when they see the smile and this confidence like radiating, they'll jump on top of you and they'll be there. But of course, don't run away, because if you do, you won't never get to talk to them. You got business incubators. They are infested with angel investors. You just pull up the garbage can, and there's one right there. Just waiting for you to throw your design document in there so he can catch it and read it and come to you. You got venture capital clubs. You know, these like gentlemen clubs and yachts or whatever, but they do cruise around, they do come by. And angel confederacies, which are just like big communities of angel investors that talk. You talk to one, next day 100 people will know about your game if it's interesting for them. And yeah, of course, you just can sell flash games. I mean, here's a couple of good friends of mine from Holland. You might know them, Flambeer. They made Super Crate Box, which landed them an IGF nomination this year. They made this little game called Radical Fishing. And they sold it to a portal, and they basically made enough money to live off of for, well, they're two guys. They're still living off of this money right now. I don't know the exact amounts, but you can guess. Holland isn't that cheap. I asked Rami what he would want to tell you guys, and he said, creating flash games was and is a way for us to earn some funding through an established model. It's a low-risk, low-resource way of earning money by doing what we love, making games. Sure, there are some compromises we need to make when we create a flash game, but you can decide in how far you compromise anyway. We think it's a great and fun way of earning some starting funds, and so should you. I was at Casual Connect Kiev in Ukraine a year ago. Very interesting experience, meeting all these Eastern European, Russian, Ukrainian, Latvian game developers. Very smart folk. But Vadim is the king of them all. He actually writes a blog where he shares all of his statistics and information and resources and ideas about building flash games and making a living out of it. Here's a little pie chart he made for you guys to read. about what he earned in the past 3 years.